What's up, guys? It's Aaron the Trucking Guy, your one-stop shop for everything trucking, talking about YouTube videos. Listen, guys, you have trucks. Now what, right? Let's assume that you went and bought a truck or trucks and you went and got owner-operators, whatever the case is, right? Now what do you do, okay? Legally, you got to get them onboarded the right way. You've got to get everything done for your drivers as far as adding them to a drug consortium, making sure they're in the clearinghouse, making sure you've got the right equipment on the trucks. But the question is, did you buy the right trucks? Okay. Did you buy the right equipment? Are you set up right? Are you over leveraged? Can you beat the depreciation curve? Did you pay too much for the equipment? Where can you find loads? Where can you find customers? How can you go into it and actually talk about where you're going to find loads, where you're going to find clients, sales, the whole nine yards? There's a fallacy in this industry that I don't understand, that you can get into landscaping, you can get into roofing, you can get into any other industry, selling cars, owning a car lot, whatever. Every other type of industry, you're going to have marketing and you're going to have sales, right? But for some reason in this industry, it's like a myth or this crazy thing that you can just go to a load board and it's like a genie in a bottle and get on the load board and get a load. And that's where you're going to get all of your work from. And you're going to allow some broker or some outside force to dictate the future success of your business. And what do I mean by that? I mean, they're going to dictate your lanes, your rates, the availability. Can you work today? Can you not? Can you work today for a profit? Can you not? You know, your cost per mile, everything's going to be determined by going to that broker and getting a load where they went and got it from a third party. Now, are brokers bad? No, not all brokers are bad. The majority do suck, but there's a few out there that are pretty good. And it's just, let's face it, 90% of the market that are out there are one to six truck companies. And of those owner operator companies or smaller companies, of the 90% of the majority, they use load boards. Okay. They get their loads from brokers. There are a few that are dedicated customer routes only or local or regional, but the majority of them get it from load boards, which come from brokers. And the customer basically is giving that overage amount of work that they would normally get to their trusted carriers or responsible relationship carriers. They're now putting out to the open market. Anytime a load from a customer goes to the open market or on a load board like that, something actually happened that was wrong. Either they don't have a carrier close by and it's an immediate like recover the load type of situation, or two, they just have an abundance of this stuff and they can't get they don't have enough relationship carriers to move it, right? So then it goes to the open market and gets bidded out. And then basically 99% of the cases in that situation, you're talking cheap. It's very rarely are you going to get paid a premium for doing that type of service, okay? But let's talk about a lot of people getting into the hotshot industry. They go buy a truck, they buy a trailer, you have that truck, or you go get an owner operator. Now what? All right. First thing you're going to have to do is have a really good onboarding process, whether it's for you, you're going to drive the truck, or you're going to hire a driver. When you get a truck, hypothetically, let's say, and you put a driver in it, but you have an investor on that truck, or you own the truck and you have a partner, whether it be a relative or a friend, or whatever it is, there's too many hands in the pie for that truck to make any money. It just won't work, right? Now, if they're willing to take a smaller percentage for a long-term gain, yes, but you're not going to be able to beat the depreciation curve. You're not going to be able to beat the downtime on that truck. So you're not going to be able to trade it in like the dealership told you when you put 200,000 miles on it in 2 years and go to trade it in, and now it's worth 20 grand and you still owe $60,000 on it, right? You're not going to save enough money in that situation to be able to eat the negative equity in that. So you're also not going to make enough profit, right? When we talk about profit, if you're going to be a fleet owner in whether it's a hot shot or a semi, in most cases, you're going to make between $400 and $600 per week per truck on average. Okay. Yes, you might have weeks that you make 800, 1,000, things like that, depending on how you set it up. And I don't care if that's a company truck or an owner operator, it's going to be statistically about the same. So that equals out roughly to about the, 25 to $35,000 range, because they're not going to run 50 weeks a year. Nobody does. I don't give a shit who it is and who tells you that. They're crazy. You're going to run roughly 40 weeks, which is, if you look at it, about a week off. So that's 12. If you take 52, subtract 12, one off a month, 1 week off a month, they want to be home. They're not going to be road warriors. That ends up at about 40 weeks. Okay. So you have to do your numbers on those averages and realize, your profit margins and going into it, what it's going to look like. So, if you're going to be successful, buy base model trucks. The problem that you're going to have is the drivers are never going to take care of your equipment like it's their own. Finding drivers is almost impossible. Most drivers want to own their own equipment and become owner operators. So the way I see it and the way I believe it and the way I teach it is just get out of the way, right? Help them become owner operators, help them become truck owners, or once they've done that, facilitate the things that they don't want to do. The services that you can bring to the table are back office, payroll, IFTA reporting, safety and compliance, ELD management, factoring services. You can handle all that back end stuff and not have to worry about driving the truck, securing the freight, things like that. They want to do that, and that's what they're capable of and what they want to do. Not many of them want to do the payroll, the submit factoring, credit checks, negotiations with brokers and dispatch. Although some do want to handle that portion of it because they want to control their own future or dictate, the success of them going forward. And they like to run certain lanes or pick certain loads. And then some days they're like, oh, I don't feel like tarping or doing this or that or whatever, vice versa. So that is an element that they would like to do, but they don't want to do the ugly stuff, going and getting the tags and the portion plates, going and getting the safety stuff done, dealing with the consortium, dealing with the clearinghouse, dealing with the onboarding, dealing with the DOT audit, dealing with all those things, right? They don't want to deal with that stuff. They just want to go get their load, get their truck. A lot of those type of personalities are wanting to keep real nice, clean equipment, sharp looking rigs, things like that. But they don't want to handle all that other stuff. That's the messy stuff, the nitty gritty. It's not so fun. It's not so sexy. It's not appealing. So that's where you can come in and handle those things and take a fee for that, right? So they can lease onto you, or you can do it as just a subsidiary service where you could say, okay, we do safety and compliance and dispatch, and we charge, 2%, 10%, whatever your fee is. And you can come in and handle those things for them, and they'll gladly pay you, and you can recruit at that level. But if you went and bought trucks, you're in a world of mess, okay? Because you have the owner operator model and you have the company driver model. Okay. The company driver model statistically doesn't work for a lot of companies. They can't keep drivers. Drivers get soured out, but then also you have no pathway, whether it's a lease purchase option or whatever it may be, to take a person from a new or company driver or rookie driver or even a seasoned new driver and give them the steps that they need to get into a higher level of a career, an aspiration they want to reach, which would be becoming an owner operator or starting their own company. You've got to have that level to get through to that, right? Or not do company trucks at all and just have owner operators because they're going to be happier long-term. It's a sustainable business that you can do with far less liability and far less money. And it makes sense because if you go buy a company truck and your payment on that truck is $1,000 a month, hypothetically, you go buy a company trailer, you buy all the equipment, you have all the liability, and the guy gets sick and doesn't drive for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you have downtime, it breaks down. That truck runs less than 40 weeks a year. Maybe for the first year, if it's a brand new equipment, it'll run consistently. But in my case, I bought a lot of brand new trucks. I know people have bought brand new trucks by the hundreds, and they never run consistently. They are also in the shop with DEF issues, brake issues, axle seal issues, transmission issues. It doesn't really matter what it is. There's an issue that's going to have that truck down to maybe like a 35 week a year deal. So when you're doing your numbers, you can't do it on 50 weeks. You say, no, I'm going to give them a week off Christmas, Thanksgiving. It doesn't work. You have to do the numbers on actually like 35 weeks, because that's what our data shows. So if that's the case, are you still profitable? And after you pay, I have a very simple mathematical chart that we say, okay, it's revenue minus fixed expenses minus variable expenses equals profit. So what is your revenue? $5,000 a week, $1,000 a day. Are you going to hit that target? Then you minus fuel, and then you minus, insurance, and then you minus, and it's weekly. And your weekly truck payments will be $250 a week if it's $1,000 a month. Trailer payments maybe say $400 a month. That's $100 a week. All of those things, but you need to also account for some sort of maintenance program. That could be 10% for the first, 5 months, and then drop it down to 5%, whatever, however you want to do it. That's up to you, but you need to have something in there for that. And then when you get down to where you're at about 40% margin, you've got driver pay, right? So what are you going to pay that driver? 60 cents a mile, 25%. There's all kinds of ways that you can pay them, but you're going to have to do that. And if you do it right, and you're going to pay taxes on them as well, and you're not getting a fuel surcharge, and you're getting the loads that say 80% of what they should be paying, because you're paying that, on average 20 to 10% ish to a broker. So you're actually getting watered down, and then you're watering on down to them. How much of that profit is really left? And then if you have a major breakdown of $3,000 to $5,000, and you're making 20 grand in a year, you take that 5 grand out, now you're back down to 15. And if that truck sits, and you're paying those, because you can't take it off the insurance, and you can't, not pay the bank for the truck payment or the trailer payment, those things are all still there, and they're going to continue to keep rolling. So those are things that you have to think about when going into this is, am I going to be profitable if it only runs 35 weeks a year? Okay. Am I going to be able to find drivers? It's much more difficult than you guys can think to find drivers. Okay. I've had all kind of drivers, good ones, bad ones, guys have been with me 5, 6, 7 years, guys that, lasted a day, guys that went and got in the truck, or didn't even show up, went and got drug tested, went through the whole process, never showed up to orientation. Right. So you can have the whole spectrum, and drivers are really, really tough. And they never take care of the equipment the way that you think that they're going to, or you think you can manage that, and you just can't, because it's all over the road. It's all over the country. It's not coming back. It's not like a rental property where you can go put your eyes on it every week to see the condition of it, right? I mean, you may be able to implement a program with FaceTime, you think, and having it come by the shop, once every 2 weeks or something like that. Those would be great programs to implement, but it's still very, very difficult to beat the depreciation curve, because that truck is going to average, say 2,500 miles a week, 500 miles a day, 5 days a week. You look at the math on those numbers. If it does actually run 40 weeks, you got 100,000 miles, right? And at that 100,000 mile range, in 2 years, if you paid 80, 100,000 for a hotshot truck, you paid 150 for a semi truck, 160, maybe you paid 100 used, whatever it is, they depreciate like crazy. It is a depreciating asset. You run that truck for 2 years, it's extremely depreciated, and you still owe, because you're not going to pay off enough unless you're paying double on it, or you put a huge amount of money down on the equipment. You're not going to be able to do that. Now, trailers will probably last because they only have a few consumable parts, and it's metal and steel, right? Aluminum, wood, whatever. They're going to last longer. So their depreciation curve isn't as bad, and they're not as expensive, depending on the type of trailer you get into. There's, specialized 100,000, whatever. But at the end of the day, the trucks depreciate so fast that you have to account for that in your math, right? So if you're saying, okay, I'm going to do, $5,000 a week at 40 weeks, okay, and at so let's just say we take 40 weeks times $5,000. All right, we're doing $200,000 a year to the truck in revenue, okay? Now, our driver's going to make X, whatever it is. You got all these expenses, maintenance. You're going to pay how much for your truck? You need to break all that down, right, before you go buy a truck. Now, if you're going to have an investor in that margin, and say that you have roughly the average in trucking, company trucks owned last year reported by the Swifts, Knights of the industry, was 7 to 13%, right? So you're not going to have a margin bigger or better than the biggest companies in the game. You're just not by much. It's not possible, because you're not going to have access to the good paying freight. You're not going to have the big discounts and the buying power that they have to get the fuel cheaper, that getting the fuel surcharge, all of the things that go into it, right? So you have to say, I'm coming in at a lesser ability to compete in order to do that, right, and achieve that goal. So then what are you going to do? You have to sit there and look and say, okay, my number's going to be X, my payment's going to be X, my depreciation is going to be X. Am I still going to be profitable, right? And you may not be. And if that's the case, then it doesn't make any sense to have an investor to go buy a truck because you heard some YouTube video or star or person on here say that you can make a bunch of money in the trucking business. You won't. Now, do I know people that, I know one guy on TikTok, he buys trucks, 15 grand, right? They put, 25 in them, whatever. By the time it's said and done, they got all brand new tires, brakes, seals, bearings, hoses, everything on it. They're into that truck for like 40 grand. If you've got 40 grand cash, or can go leverage 40 grand cash and do that, maybe from an investor or whatever, and they're willing to put up 40 grand, and you have a truck that's damn near brand new, that's probably a good plan, but not always going to work out. I've done those same type of situations, and that truck went and blew up in a month, right? I did that same exact situation a couple of times. Transmission went out like that, 9, 10 grand. Motor, to have a end frame done on an engine, it's not cheap. And that dog might be dead right at that point. Then during the time that it takes, 2, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever, to get that truck back on the road, if you don't pay your driver, now you get a new problem. You got the horse fixed, but the rider's gone, right? So he went and got a job because he has to support his family. So now you got to go get a new driver and find a new one, which is a new problem. So then that truck's down 2 months of the year. And by the time you get it back in, you've lost 2 months of the year. What month did you start that you already done? If you started in January, you're down 2 months. Yeah, you might be able to have 10 months to recover that year to see if you're going to be able to make that thing make money. Leasing onto one of the bigger companies might be a smarter option. There's sub fleets that lease onto, like a Landstar or a Mercer or a Prime or I think even TMC. Some of them have owner operator programs. They probably have really stringent requirements on the type of equipment. It's got to be really new, things like that. But they probably have better sales, better freight, fuel discounts, buying power, fuel surcharge, things that you can get access to that smaller fleets can't and are unable to do, right? So you got to really think about that. And if you're not doing your numbers that way and saying, okay, depreciation curve, maintenance, driver pay, downtime, all of those things have to come into the equation in order to see if you're going to be profitable in your business. Because if you go buy 5 trucks, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're not going to find. I have trucks that have set sometimes 2 months, 3 months because we couldn't find qualified drivers. We get a lot of guys that we couldn't get on insurance, bad records, applying, things like that, and we're not going to hire those guys because all you're going to do is compound your problem. It's better that truck sit and cost you, $2,500 a month between payment and insurance or whatever, versus putting someone that's bad in that truck that might cost you $5,000, $10,000. I've had guys go out in the first week and screw something up and cost $5,000, $10,000 like that, no problem. So you have to really think about that before you dive in and you're like, okay, I've got trucks, now what? So you have to have a good onboarding practice. You've got to have good contracts in place. You have to look to see if you're gonna be profitable. That's why I teach the owner operator business model. The owner operator has the truck. He's going to take care of his truck. Most of those guys, if they had good credit, sufficient amount of money down, they were knowledgeable and they were astute enough to and sophisticated enough to go get credit, get money, buy a truck, buy a trailer, get their equipment, get ready. They want to do all that stuff, but maybe they don't want to run the back end office stuff. They don't want to have their own company, or maybe it's just not the right time, or maybe they want to learn before they start their own company, or help get help guided through the process of the back end side that they don't know. They know how to run a truck because they've been driving for however long, or whatever, or they know how to run equipment. They know how to strap, secure freight, whatever. They know how to do a lot of that type of thing. That's more of the blue collar, boots on the ground type of thing, but they don't know how to do the office stuff. So they want to learn, or maybe they don't want to do it, or maybe they don't have the money or finances to go that far with the insurance and things right now, but they're going to do it eventually. So then you can say, okay, let's partner for this year, 6 months, 2 year, 3 year period. So you can learn, so you can see if you really want to start your own company, so you can get the back office down, so you can see what it takes, things like that. And then you can step out and do your own thing, and then you can, level up, whatever. Right. But what I've also noticed, if you think, hey, I got a guy, his company went out of business, and he's going to come to you and he's got 5 trucks, and there's a reason why he went out of business, right? He did something wrong. Not to say that, he's a bad person. It just means he made a mistake, right? So if he made a mistake and he comes into your company with these 5 trucks, 5 drivers, he's adding another hand in the pie as far as the company that has to make a profit for all those 5 trucks, because we have to run them. We have costs that are incurred with them, things like that. So he's basically going backwards. Now you have to really look at that and say, are these trucks over leveraged? Are his drivers not good drivers? Is he not a good business person? Does he have unrealistic expectations on what he needs to make and what he thought he could make? Or was he just not a good business person and good with money, or didn't spend it well, didn't maintenance equipment well, whatever it is, right? So in most of those situations, when you take it from where he had a profit margin of X and you put it over here, and now we have another company dipping into it, there's not enough. So at the end of the day, that equation is not going to work. I have a lot of people call me like, hey man, my brother owns the truck. I'm going to drive the truck. My mom owns the trailer, whatever, or my wife or sister, and we're going to do it like this. There's too many people in the pie to make a profit from that, right? If it's one guy, one owner operator, it will work. If it's not, it's just not going to work. Now, company drivers, you can make that work, but it's a long-term vision. It's not going to be, we're going to profit off this truck 23,000, 30,000, 40,000 this year. Those are unrealistic numbers, right? Unless you've got some crazy sales force, sales base, huge amount of customers, that concept is just not going to work. I teach against that, because when you go buy the trucks, you have your credit on the line, the depreciation curve you can't beat, all the maintenance is in your name. When they break it, you have to fix it. And let's face it, some of these drivers are rookie, not knowing, or don't care, and they're going to continue to break equipment, right? And when they break it, you got to fix it. That's too much responsibility if they can go out there and damage a transmission or blow up a motor or whatever. And there's sometimes people that are just out to sabotage you because they don't like you, or you short paid them, or you had a dispute. And they might be the nice guy in the world. You have one dispute with them and they're ready to break your equipment or leave it somewhere stranded. You don't have a CDL to go get it. All of those things are just, you're cooking a recipe for disaster. All right. So what I teach is an owner operator business model where the owner operator comes in, he owns the truck, he owns the trailer, he's willing to drive it, he has the equipment. We're willing to take all of the back office stress off of him that he doesn't want to do. The dispatch, maybe he wants to dispatch himself. So that's an opportunity that we'll kind of baby step him into, because you got to be able to trust that person or it can really burn you. But we handle all the back office stress stuff that he doesn't want to do. Okay. And that's safety compliance. And we handle it in such a way because we've been doing it so long that we know the right way to do it. And he doesn't know a lot of those things. I have guys that go out and run on paper logs, don't have fire extinguishers mounted, don't have their truck book or truck binder put together correctly, don't have the ELD user manual. They're not using their ELD properly. They're running around on personal conveyance and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They just don't know the right way to do it, and they're having to go and learn by trial and error, which is never the best way to learn, right? So my recommendation is go in there, learn the things to run them the right way, recruit owner operators. That guy quits, guess what? You can replace him. He can come in and say, hey man, my motor blew up. You say, Jim, that sucks. I'm sorry for you. Let me know when you get it fixed. I'll be glad to put you back to work. Okay. We'll have a spot open for you anytime. All right. He says, hey man, this ain't working out for me. I'm out of here. I'm going to go do my own thing, whatever. Okay. Hey, no hard feelings, Jim. Best of luck. Whatever. I hope it works out for you. That way you have no downside liability. Not, I would say no, but very minimal amount. Okay. You're still gonna have liability because you have a fiduciary responsibility for the load, the freight. If they break down, you got to get it taken care of, deal with the broker, coordinate getting it delivered. Even if you have to send another truck over there at your dime, your expense, whatever, that still has to be done because you're responsible as a company for that, right? The safety score, and you don't want to leave someone if they didn't have the finances or financing and they're broke down on the side of the road. You don't want to leave them stranded in Nantucket, right? So you want to make sure that they can get home, make sure you can help them get their equipment home. So there's a little bit of liability still there. Also, they damage a load, but securing it, scratching it, whatever, not tarping it, allowing it to get wet. You have liability in the freight side of it if that person damages it. That's why you do thorough background checks, MVR checks, employment verification checks to make sure that they are capable of doing the job and that they're capable of being an honest human being. And even with all the processes put in place that we can teach you how to do here at Fleet Builder, is that you're going to end up with one or two come through that are, cuckoo, whatever. They're not a good person. They're going to end up in a situation, and that's cost of doing business. You just got to deal with it. But if you go out and leverage a bunch of trucks, you're not going to be able to find drivers. They're very, very difficult to find. Good ones, very difficult, extremely difficult. And you don't have enough benefit in your program to recruit them anyway. You're not a TMC with this big brand and this big name and doing all these things. You're not a Maverick. You're not a Mercer. There's so many big fleets out there with big names with a ton of benefits that they can offer them as a owner operator. And you're just not that person. You're not going to be able to be that person until you really build up your fleet, right? So even if you wanted to buy company trucks, the rule of thumb is 2 to 1. So you would have 2 owner operators to 1 company truck. That way, if your company truck goes down, driver quits, whatever, you've got 2 owner operators out there making you some money, whether that be $300 a week, whatever, to at least offset the cost of the truck payment, the trailer payment, the equipment payment. Now, I say buy cash every time you can. If you can buy, definitely don't finance the truck and the trailer. Buy, finance the truck, obviously, because there's an extreme amount of money. Pay cash for your trailer. Buy your trailer used, pay 10, 12, 15,000. And everybody's like, oh, I want, the bells and whistles trailer, the air ride, this, that. Okay, cool. Start with one to get rolling that you can pay cash for. Use that one to make some money, save up, and then go buy your air ride trailer or deck your trailer out, fix it up, make accessories, this and that. But get to the 14 ply tires, all the things that need to be on there. And that's hot shot. If you're doing flatbed, start with a $15,000, $10,000 used trailer, but go redo the tires, redo the brakes, redo everything on it so that when you send it back out there, it's just as nice as a new one. Maybe it's not as pretty. Maybe it doesn't have this feature, that feature, whatever, but I've done it more than enough times. And now is the best time to buy equipment. It's never been cheaper. I'm telling you, in history, stuff's cheap right now. So, look at, if you're going to buy equipment, get your owner operators first, then you can go buy a company truck. That's what you need to do. That's what then you get a good dispatch program down. You understand, how to move freight logistically the right way that makes money, that's profitable for your drivers, how to recruit these people, how to put them onboard them the right way, do everything legal, moral, ethical. And once you get through that process, you have a scalable model that you can then just keep dumping in more people, more owner operators, and grow that business. But you got to get the core down first, which is the onboarding procedures, the lease on procedures, and then you're gonna have to fire people sometimes and let them go and lay them off and terminate them. You got to have that down to a science where you do it the same way every time, because you can't treat one person with kid gloves and this other person not. So everything has to be the same across the board. That's what we teach you at Fleet Builder. Consult Trucking Guy. Go to consulttruckingguy.com. We'll be glad to help you implement a program and get started That way you can, get your trucks and then figure out what to do with them and move on from there. But you have to have some sort of system that is duplicatable and that you do the same way with every person every time. And it has to be a system that's set up for success and not failure. So that's what you need to do. We look forward to working with you. Click whatever link you can here, there, wherever, next video, or go to consultthetruckingguy.com. Book a call with me at a very minimum, and we can get started in coaching you, to where you guys want to be and grow your fleet. Catch you on the next one.